Good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night, so we're going to learn. Last week, we learned the laws of the 3 weeks. Tonight, we're going to learn the laws what's called the 9 days. And next week, we're going to learn the laws of Tisha B'Av, because in 2 weeks from tonight is Tisha B'Av, so we're not going to be having the class, obviously, the night of Tisha B'Av. Okay, so again, in the Gemara, it speaks basically about the week of Tisha B'Av. Like this year, Tisha B'Av is Thursday. So when the Gemara speaks about all the things that are forbidden, 3 weeks, 9 days, the Gemara always speaks about the week of Tisha B'Av. But halacha says, especially in the Ashkenazi community, we have the 3 weeks and then we have the 9 days. So the laws of the 3 weeks we discussed last week. The 9 days are basically much stricter laws of Avelus than the 3 weeks. Because 3 weeks is like the year, like we learned. The 9 days is similar to the concept of Shleishim. So the Gemara says, when the month of Av comes, Mamatim b'simcha, it's not a joyous month. The Gemara says, if you have a court case with a non-Jew, it's better to postpone it, if possible, for the whole month, or at least until after Tisha B'Av, because it's not a lucky month. So therefore, people many times years ago, today we don't do it, but years ago, people would limit business that they did during the 9 days. People would not purchase things like expensive things of joy. You don't buy new things, like new jewelry, let's say, unless you're not going to get it after 9 days, or it's going to be more expensive then. But again, things that you don't need, things that are joyous things that cause joy, people avoid doing it during the 9 days, because again, it's a time of mourning over the destruction of the Beis Din. In fact, construction, talking like they say, a vacation home, a patio, things that are not necessary to live in. So then what you need to do is you don't build vacation homes, patio. If obviously you need to be modeling in the house and you need to do it for living purposes, then you would be allowed to do it during the 9 days. But just like to paint your house, which it's livable, you just want to paint it, you should avoid it doing until after the 9 days. Home decorating should be done after the 9 days. Again, if you're building construction or things for a shul, a school, a mikveh, so then obviously it's allowed. You don't plant things during the 9 days. Like you don't plant trees, flowers. You avoid planting such things during the 9 days. Again, because it brings joy and we want to try to lessen the amount of joy. Okay, another important custom is that we don't eat meat or drink wine during the 9 days. Okay, which includes Rosh Chodesh. So this week is Shabbos Mevorchim. Rosh Chodesh is Wednesday, which means Tuesday night after sundown begins the laws of the 9 days. Now you don't eat meat or wine during the 9 days. Fish could be eaten. But the laws of the 9 days begin, actually, it means if you want to eat dinner of meat Tuesday, you have to be done before sundown. You can't eat 9 o'clock dinner with meat because it's Rosh Chodesh. So you need to no meat or wine. Even that includes, by the way, chicken, or even like chicken soup. Okay, chicken soup is not chicken, but it has chicken taste in it. So therefore, that's also forbidden. But you're allowed to make something pariv. You're allowed to make something pariv in a meat container, meat pot, even though it was used for that day, providing it's clean. So if it's clean, you're allowed to cook pasta, let's say, or fish in a meat pot, as long as there's no meat in it. Now, obviously, this din that we're speaking about, no wine and meat, does not apply to Shabbos. Shabbos, you have meat and you can have wine. Now, it's interesting. What happens if somebody brings Shabbos in early? Many people, summertime, bring Shabbos in early. So once they bring Shabbos in early, when they bring Shabbos in, then for them it's Shabbos, they can have meat and they can have wine. Little kids, let's say, that can't stay up to eat until 9, 10 o'clock, whatever. And they have their Shabbos meal earlier, Friday evening, because it's their Shabbos meal. You're talking about kids under Bar and Bas Mitzvah. Because it's their Friday night meal, they can also have meat and wine and things like that. Now, many people have a minhag that if you finish a tractate, then you're allowed to have meat, which is halachically correct. Chabad custom, generally speaking, the Rebbe Rashab said, we make siyumim. The Rebbe wanted siyumim to finish tractates during the 9 days, but we still don't eat meat. People can have by a bris milah, you're allowed to have meat. By piyana ben, you can have meat. By mitzvah, it's questionable in halacha if you can have meat at a bar mitzvah. So the custom is you try not to. But again, it's third fish, so it's not an issue. Okay. Now, what else don't we do during the 9 days? Okay. Another thing that we don't do during the 9 days is we don't do laundry. Laundry is forbidden to do during the 9 days, even if you're putting it away for after the 9 days. You can't even give things to the cleaners during the 9 days for after the 9 days, even if the person is not Jewish. So you're not allowed to clean clothes during the 9 days. Now, what happens if somebody runs out of clothes? Or the Gemara speaks about babies' clothing that they get filthy a lot. In the olden times, they didn't have disposable diapers. So they're talking about baby diapers, cloth diapers that needed to be cleaned because, So the din is children's clothing could be washed, preferably, if it has to be done in private, number one, and preferably not the week of Tisha B'Av, because again, that's stricter in halacha. If somebody mamish runs out of clothing and they have nothing to wear, they should call it off to find out. Because even, and I want to mention another important thing, even when you're allowed to wash clothing during the 9 days, you're only allowed to wash what you must need, what you need. In other words, you can't say, okay, I'm making a load already. I need 4 items. I'm putting up the washing machine anyway. Let me put in 10 items. That you're not allowed to do, even though the machine is washing it. You're only allowed when you have a heter to wash clothing until the week of Tisha B'Av. Or if it's after the week of Tisha B'Av, but you have nothing to, it's during the week of Tisha B'Av. You have to call it off, but even then, you're only allowed to wash what you're allowed to do. Now, officially, I'm going to say a din as follows: washing and bake. I'm not there yet. 1 second. Another din is as follows: you're not supposed to wear freshly laundered garments during the 9 days, which does not include underwear, clothing that get on your body directly, so those could be changed. But the din is like this: let's say you have shirts and pants or dresses or whatever. So if you wore them already once, it's fine. You wore them before, so there's no issue. But you're not supposed to, halachically, you're not supposed to wear freshly laundered clothing during the 9 days, except Shabbos. Shabbos is the exception. There's no problem wearing clothing on Shabbos. But as far as wearing during the week, wearing freshly laundered clothing it's a custom that you're not supposed to do. So what should people do? So let's say, for argument's sake, a man will need 4 shirts, 5 shirts, okay? So before the 9 days start, meaning in the next few days, before the 9 days start, you put on a shirt, you wear it for half an hour, take it off, put on another shirt, half an hour, change, blouses, dresses, anything like that you want to wear that's freshly laundered, you put it on for a half an hour. And by the way, halachically, you can even put on a few shirts at the same time, or a few dresses at the same time, or whatever. As long as it's worn for a half an hour, then it's not an issue. Then even because then it's not freshly laundered anymore. So then you would be allowed to do that. Okay. Now, by the way, this is an interesting halacha. Even though for Shabbos, and we need to keep this in mind, even though for Shabbos you're allowed to change your clothing, put on freshly laundered clothing, but linen, bed linen, you're not allowed to change for Shabbos during the 9 days. In other words, if you want, you before the Chodesh start, but you have to sleep on it before the Chodesh. You can't change your bed Tuesday late afternoon that you're sleeping on it Friday, Tuesday night, which is already Rosh Chodesh. But if you want to change your sheets, you cannot put on fresh sheets for Shabbos, fresh linen for Shabbos. So you have to put it on before that. You lay on it for half an hour or whatever. And then even though it's for Shabbos and clothing you're allowed to wear, but halacha says linen you're not supposed to. What? Okay, next is like this. During the 9 days, you're not supposed to purchase garments. The only heter of purchasing garments is when it's on big sale, a big sale, not summer sale, a big sale. So then you could buy during the 9 days. Otherwise, you don't buy, you don't wear new garments, you don't make new garments, you don't do, during the 9 days, it's brought down in halacha, you don't do needlepoint, you don't do sewing. Now, obviously, if sewing to fix a button or if there's a tear in the seam or something, then you're allowed to sew it. But you don't needlepoint, you don't do crocheting during the 9 days. Okay, next is like this. Okay. Now, this then I'm going to explain the way it is, and then we'll take it from there. During the 9 days, it's a time of mourning over the destruction of the Bais Din. Therefore, halachically, you're not allowed to go swimming during the 9 days. 3 weeks, you are allowed to go swimming, even if you don't go swimming before we discussed last week. But during the 9 days, you're not allowed to go swimming. What happens if somebody goes swimming for health purposes? The doctor says you need to swim every day. They should ask a shaila because then it's a little bit different. But recreational swimming for pleasure, you're not allowed to do during the 9 days. Okay? Swimming lessons. So most poskim say you should not do it during the 9 days, especially not the week of Tisha B'Av. Even if little kids have swimming lessons, that means over the age of 5, basically, they should not have swimming lessons during the 9 days. And if they stay but then they say you could do it until the week of Tisha B'Av, which means this year, if Wednesday is Rosh Chodesh and you must, they can have lessons Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which even that halacha says better not. But the week of Tisha B'Av, they should not be having swimming lessons. In addition to that, let me tell you what it says in halacha and how it applies to today, and then we'll take it from there, like they say. Halachically, you're only allowed to wash your hands, face, and feet in cold water. That's what it says in halacha. If you have dirt spots or other things, so then you're allowed to wash them off. It says a person, I'm going to get practical now in practical about showering, because today, in the time of the Gemara, the Rambam brings down, people would shower, go to the bathhouse once a week. People bathed once a week in the time of the Gemara. Today, people shower every day, basically. Many people shower every day. So again, if somebody feels they need a shower, they can take a quick shower. If they need warm water, they can use warm water. If they need a little bit of soap, they can use soap. Bottom line is, if you need to take a shower during the 9 days, nowadays you're allowed to, but it has to be a quick shower. You can't sit in the bathtub and enjoy the bath. A person needs to take a shower. They could take a shower. It should be a quick shower, preferably not hot water, warm water, cool water, whatever, but as quick as possible. Those people that go to mikveh are allowed to go, I'm talking about men now, are allowed to go to mikveh during the 9 days, if they always go. But by Chassidim, you go to mikveh the 9 days. What shouldn't be done in a mikveh, and this is brought down already in Poskim, even a person that wants to take a shower and takes a shower, they should not do it in the mikveh. It's wrong to take a shower in the mikveh. You need to take a shower, do it privately in your home, take a quick shower, and then go to the mikveh. You don't sit in the mikveh and take showers because it's against halacha to do. Halacha, if you need a shower, you could take a quick shower, but it says you do that in private. You don't do that in public. It's very important. Now, if women need to go to mikveh, so then they do everything. They cut their hair and they shower and they bathe and they do everything because that's for the sake of a mitzvah. In fact, in many places, it says in halacha, they should cool down the men's mikveh. They should cool it down. It shouldn't be a hot mikveh during the 9 days. But even if a man is going to the mikveh during the 9 days, you can't sit in the mikveh like many times men do and enjoy the spa, sitting and enjoying the hot mikveh. You have to go in and out. In other words, you're doing it for the mitzvah. You're not pleasurable bathing and showering is forbidden. Somebody feels they're dirty and they need to clean themselves. You're allowed to, again, a quick shower. If the water doesn't have to be hot, fine. Erev Shabbos, even in halacha, by the way, Erev Shabbos, in halacha it says you can wash your hands, face, and feet with warm water. The Poel in the Hasidic world, and now already universally, for Shabbos, in the Hasidic world, they paskin, you could take a regular shower for Shabbos. So for Shabbos, you bathe normally like you would every day of the year, because Alter Rebbe said that the Shabbos during the 9 days in halacha, if you look in Shulchan Aruch, Poskim, many people on Shabbos of the 9 days didn't even wear their Shabbos clothing. They wore their weekday clothing as a sign of mourning. The Alter Rebbe says we don't change anything whatsoever from a regular Shabbos. And now this became universally accepted even by the Litvische, by everybody, that Shabbos during the 9 days, you wear your regular Shabbos clothing. Okay, that's basically those dinim in a nutshell about for the 9 days. Now, if somebody needs, coming back to, these are the general laws, to go into more details. If somebody is sick and they need to eat, okay, give me an example. They're allergic to dairy and they don't eat fish, because some people are allergic to fish also. So then halacha says until the week of Tisha B'Av, if need be, they can have meat, but they should preferably have chicken over meat. But technically somebody should, if they need it for health, then they're allowed to eat meat. If a little kid, a baby, needs to eat meat because they don't eat anything else, they're allowed to have meat. Again, preferably if you can give them chicken, it's better, but if not, they can eat meat. And especially, we said when they bring Shabbos in early, that would be allowed to. For instance, pregnant or nursing women, if they have a problem eating dairy, sometimes they have a problem eating dairy, so because they have a din of a sick person, they also could eat meat. Preferably, it says in halacha, they should stop on the 7th of Av. Okay, so we learned last time, I believe we discussed, there's the 3 weeks, there's the 9 days, there's the week of Tisha B'Av, and then there's something called the 7th of Av. 7th of Av begins a stricter dinim than the rest of the 9 days. Not in too many practical dinim. What happened on the 7th of Av? So we learned that during the 3 weeks, they broke through the wall of Yerushalayim. And they started ripping apart Yerushalayim. On the 7th of Av, they actually went into the Bais Hamikdash and started desecrating it. On the 9th of Tisha B'Av, in the afternoon, they lit the Bais Hamikdash, and it burned the 9th in the afternoon into the night and the majority of the 10th day. So therefore, Zion of becomes a little bit stricter, okay? Or let's say even technically children should not be eating meat during the 9 days. I'm saying little babies, they could, but kids 6, 7 years old should not be, preferably should not be eating meat during the 9 days. In fact, there's a very interesting question in halacha. Should fleishik restaurants be open during the 9 days? Should meat restaurants be open during the 9 days? So they rule, it's interesting because in halacha it says, by 9 days, then nobody does shechita. You don't do shechita during the 9 days because nobody's allowed to eat it. Later codifiers write, nowadays we do, because today you have frozen meat. People shecht meat, they buy it and they freeze it. Who says they're eating it during the 9 days? Maybe they're buying it for after the 9 days. With a meat restaurant is as follows. It's interesting because all the kashrus organizations go crazy with this. A meat restaurant, talk about a glatt kosher meat restaurant, should have a fish menu for the 9 days, which should be offered to people. But halachically, they're allowed to serve meat to people. Why? Maybe the person's sick. Maybe he listened to a tractate of a Gemara. And a bigger issue. One of the main reasons why you're allowed to open up a meat restaurant during the 9 days, because many non-religious people, if they don't have kosher meat that they want, they're going to buy it in a treif for restaurant. That's much worse. Eating treif is much worse than eating meat during the 9 days. So there are opinions in halacha I saw that say, no, who cares about them? Because of the low life, so to speak, we should not keep the observance of what we keep, but they're outnumbered. And the answer is, stores can, now, somebody, you're allowed to cook meat during the 9 days. Oh, let me come to one more interesting thing. When a woman cooks for Shabbos, I'm talking not the Shabbos in the 9 days. So you're cooking food for Shabbos. You're making a cholent, you're making a chicken soup, you're making whatever. I don't want to give you all my recipes. So can a woman taste the food? She's cooking chicken soup and she wants to know if it needs salt or not. Halacha says she should be careful not to taste the soup. And if she has to, it says, she should taste it and not swallow it. Just taste on the lip and spit it out. Because then it's not called eating meat during the 9 days. So when you cook a meal during the 9 days, you have to make sure and be aware that you shouldn't be tasting the meat when you cook the food. Okay. Does anybody have any question about the 9 days? If not, we're going to go straight to Tanya. Can we do laundry Thursday night after the fast? That we will talk next week. Ideally, under normal circumstances, Tisha B'Av, the laws of the 9 days go until the 10th of Av at 1 o'clock. So let's say, for argument's sake, Tisha B'Av is Monday. So all the laws of the 9 days apply until Tuesday, 1 o'clock. So you can't do laundry, you can't eat meat, you can't listen to music, you can't do all those things. Because Tisha B'Av this year is Thursday, and Friday is out of Shabbos, so then halacha says you're allowed to do laundry right away in the morning. You don't have to wait until 1 o'clock. All the other laws, by the way, apply. You can't eat meat in the morning, you can't listen to music in the morning, but laundry, because you need it for Shabbos and it takes time, so laundry you're allowed to do Thursday morning. If somebody needs to do laundry Thursday night, they should call with a shaila, because many times it's allowed to do laundry. In this case, Thursday night, even though it says you need to do it Friday morning, and only L'Kavod Shabbos. Otherwise, but that again, when we get to the dinim of Tisha B'Av, we're going to talk more about that. Okay, that's basically the dinim of the 9 days. Hashem should help us. Mashiach will come, and we won't have to have all the dinim of the 9 days, and we'll be celebrating in the streets. And the side benefit is we won't have to fast Tisha B'Av. That's a